Welcome back to another edition of Chicago Crossing Model Railroad. Eric here with you. And today we are hitting the first in our weathering series. Today I'll be weathering this Norfolk Southern Bulkhead Flatcar and making it look certainly a lot better than just kind of the out-of-the-box condition. You know, one thing you notice with these flat cars is they are nice in terms of the molding detail, except for instance, the deck, which in this case really needs to be replaced. If you hold that up to the light, you can kind of see there are, basically molding injection points up at the very, very top there. And you can also see there is wooden planking that is in there, but at the same time, it really doesn't have a very strong relief to it. So that is going to be replaced by a Microtrains wooden deck up on the top that can basically just be applied on top of the model. So that's one key point. The other key point is ahead of time, I usually just sort of figure out what extent I want to weather this car and what I'm really trying to accomplish here. In my case, there's a couple of different things. One is looking at prototype photos on Railroad Pictures Archive. I've noticed that a lot of these cars feature sort of an oil can effect on the bulkheads. And oil canning is basically a process by which steel heats and expands and contracts and sort of deforms outside of where the beams are. So on a rail car itself, what you end up seeing is basically just the imprint of the beams, and then you see bits of damage around that point based on where these kind of bulge out, and then the rest it kind of sinks in. So it's a challenging effect. I'm not going to say by any means that on these bulkheads I'm like going to manage to get an effect that I'm absolutely happy about, nor would I approach this as a how-to video. Again, this is me experimenting and using this car as a way to try to best get to a particular point. So a couple of things about doing the oil canning effect on the bulkheads, and this is actually pretty important. Number one, much like the deck of this car, the bulkheads also have integrated into them a molded detail showing wooden planking. And the prototypes that I'm trying to model do not have wooden planking on the bulkheads, just on the deck. And so what that means is I've got to take this car and basically cover up that decking effect. I can't sand it off because it's not, raised elements. It's actually sunken in. You can actually see there's even just some indentation from how this decking or how the bulkhead was molded. But on top of that, it's really not suitable for trying to do any sort of flat effect on it. So that's going to have to be altered a bit here. So I've got some evergreen plain opaque 0.13 millimeter or 0.005 inch, so 5 thou polystyrene. And what I'm going to do is cut it to size and then use that as the surface of the bulkheads. So once that's adhered into place, if there's any gaps, I'll fill and sand them. And at that point, basically I'll be matching paint. I didn't buy specific paint for this livery, but I do have Hull Red and a couple of other colors in Tamiya paint. Okay, I've got the new bulkheads applied, and I've also color matched the paint as closely as I can by eye. And that's fine. Again, I don't tend to keep a lot of lists of the mixing. I just basically use my eyes to see what I'm doing and what I'm mixing. So it looks pretty close. And I think once there's sufficient coats on there, it will match quite closely. Certainly, paint discolors over time as well. The bulkheads are almost going to be the entirety of the painted surface on the car that you'll see. So if there's a slight mismatch, I'll probably just blend it back to the rest of the bulkheads, like on the top where I've had to do some sanding and stuff like that. So I think we're in good shape now to begin. looks pretty good. So this was essentially a base coat of hull red and sky gray, as you can see here. I'm also, that sky gray is kind of nice because it provides a lightning sort of effect on the whole red, so that's how I basically match the colors here. And next what I'm going to be doing is taking some very, very dilute NATO black in order to create maybe a little bit of shadowing effect on the bulkheads, as well as deck tan, which will provide a little bit of the lighter coloring that will help to kind of create a sense of fading of the paint. So we'll do that real quick and then see what we have next. All right, this is basically what you get after that. As you can see, I'm not going for major shifts in color, but certainly the impression that there is a discoloration or fading of the paint. And so next I'm going to clear coat this, and then we'll put a pin wash on it. All right, I'm going to be using the Tamiya panel line accent color, as you can see. That is basically designed to accentuate shadows. When you have miniatures, light falls on them very, very differently. And so being able to simulate shadows or depth really helps to make a model look much more realistic at this scale. You can just use oil paints and thinner, and basically what you do is you wipe the model with thinner using a brush, and then you basically apply very dilute oil paint. For me, the panel line accent color is just kind of a nice shortcut to that. This is a nice high quality enamel product, and it provides some really, really good capillary action on the model, which I think is really quite helpful for just getting this done quickly. All right, that is all dried up, which is nice. And afterwards, just to let you know, any cleanup, you basically can use just an enamel thinner on a very tiny micro brush, and that can remove any stray pigment you don't want from the panel line accent. For oil paints, basically just odorless mineral spirits. So now it's time to try to replicate oil canning. And oil canning mostly just looks like you can see the support struts within the bulkhead itself. So it's almost just kind of a play of light. And what I'm going to be using here are AK weathering pencils. This is kind of a first time, try this out and see how it looks. So again, this is not a how-to video. This is a, well, let's see what happens sort of video. So I'm using a light rust-colored pencil for the main effect to basically define the boundaries of where the struts are. And then I'm using a dirty white and a rubber color out of the pencil set in order to create the light and shadow effects that happen because of the fact that the metal sort of bows inward at the bottom of that strut and then bows back out. So what you're getting is these kind of shades or plays of light on the car that show the underside ribbing behind the sheet metal. All right, what I've decided to do is basically get through doing paint chipping on the bulkheads because the play of light is one part of the oil canning, but then the paint chipping is the other. And so here what I've done is basically a chipping effect, first using AV Vallejo kind of light gray. So it's the blue-gray color, as you can see, or gray-blue rather. In addition, I've also used what I always just call dunkelgrau. It's the dark gray air color, and essentially just a sponge. And what I've done is I've just kind of tapped at it very, very lightly using a very small sponge. So there's nothing particularly notable about the technique. It's more just trying to apply it in order to accentuate the ribbing that you can see behind the bulkheads here. All right, so just a little bit more sponge chipping, and I think this is pretty much where I'm going to leave it. You know, I don't know that this is the perfect technique for oil canning, and oil canning I think is honestly, rather difficult to achieve at this scale. I've seen it done on ship models as well using oil paints, and maybe that's a different approach that can be taken on these bulkheads, but in general, I'm pretty happy with the effect. I think it'll look pretty good once the car is fully reassembled. All right, next it's time to deal with the wooden decking. So this is wooden decking that is sort of a laser cut print from microtrains. Oftentimes I'll use the ITLA decks, and those are great because they're actual wood material. This is sort of a wood material, but the printing is actually quite shiny. And so what I'm doing here is I'm basically using the same color mix I used for the car to dull down the shine that you can see on this thing. So basically just coming at it with the airbrush and going over in light coats, as you can see. The goal here is not to paint it necessarily, but it's simply to add enough kind of flat coating on there to knock down the shine. And there's probably other ways that one can do this. I should mention clear coating, simply using like a flat coat does not necessarily work. In fact, I've already clear coated this and you can see it still shines. So I'm kind of getting there. It takes a little bit in order to do this, so I'm just going to fill in a little bit more paint here and just keep going at it with light coats. The other goal is not to eliminate the detail on here. So there's kind of a fine line between overpainting the thing and just knocking down the shine that you see. All right, it's time to attach the deck. I'm actually going to be using canopy glue for this. Main reason is I don't want to be using cryolanoacetate or super glue because that bonds almost instantaneously to this stuff given how sort of porous and rough of a surface it is. So I'm basically just applying the canopy glue with a brush. You also notice I've done a little bit of graffiti detailing on the car. That's all just hand painted. I figure since this video isn't about graffiti per se, I would spare you the process for that. Maybe someday I'll go into it, but I'm not exactly an expert. And last thing to note is I had to trim this deck a little bit because of the polystyrene addition onto the ends of the bulkheads. This deck needed just a little bit of trimming in order to make sure it was a snug fit with no warping. Next up, I'm painting the sides here. The way that this is printed on, of course, the sides of this material don't match the top. They actually sort of look like the same color as the bespoke base that I've used in order to hold this car. And so what I'm coming at them with is essentially a wash of Model Air wood, and then after that a bit of dark rust in order to basically create kind of a dirty or darkened look. Because again, with wood, it's not just a single color, it's actually quite a few different colors. And so here, using diluted paint so that you get a wash effect, I'm essentially just darking down the sides so that they don't look odd relative to the actual deck itself. And it just goes to show, the wooden decking prints here are actually quite nice, but it is not a ready-made product. Like, once you apply it, if you want it to look good, it actually does take a little bit of sort of post-production on your part to make everything look sound. So after some additional clear coating, now what I'm doing is applying a very thinned down Vallejo rust wash. This stuff I actually love. Once you've clear coated your car, you can, especially certain colors like this, it actually almost helps to increase contrast, and it just leaves like a very, very thin patina of a rust-like color that you can tell it's there, but it's not so obtrusive as to look like you've basically just taken, a deep sort of pigment and placed it all over the car. Another round of clear coating, and that's pretty much where I want this car to be in terms of its look. Again, this is not supposed to be a super heavy weathering job. I'm not trying to make it look like a rust bucket, but I am trying to make it look realistic. And, you know, I think with the bit of graffiti, with the wooden decking, and all the additional detail work, yeah, that's a pretty nice car body. So next we'll get to the trucks. So as you can see here, got the trucks that came with the car. I'll be substituting in metal wheels from Tangent on these, but for the time being, I'm not going to worry about body mounting the couplers. So I've flat coated these first outside, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint them with some Vallejo paint. That always works really well. In this case, I'm basically going to be putting on a dark rust color as the base color. And for this, I'm just going to hand paint them. You know, this type of pigment takes really, really well. So there's not really a lot of kind of post hoc work you need to do. And I'm hitting the couplers here, but I'm hitting them only on the outside and sort of lightly where the knuckle is, just to keep the couplers operative. Too thick of a coat of paint, and you kind of mess with them a little bit too much. All right, that's all out of the way, so now what I'm going to do is basically paint these brass air hoses slash coupling mechanisms black so that they look more like an air hose. They kind of look ridiculous in that color. So again, Vallejo paint. This is just straight up black, and that will take care of that. And next up, basically some dry brushing with flat earth. That really helps to create a little bit of depth and just add some additional road dirt to these trucks.